Qurطbة, once the most important metropolis of the Caliphate, a city of harmony and also great contrast. The Ponte Romana extends across the Gurul Kavir and leads to the Old Town. With its 16 arches, the Roman bridge that spans the river is one of the city's main landmarks. Qurطbة owes its location to this big river. The city is one of the finest and most cultural in the Occident. Qurطbة is a city in which the history of the caliphs, Romans, Jews and Christians is still very much alive. This was the center of the Arab realm of the Al-Andalus that reached its peak around 1000 AD. The city's most important building is the Mesquite Cathedral in the center of the Old Town. It's undoubtedly the most splendid mosque of Moorish Islamic origin on the Iberian Peninsula. Construction of the main mosque began in 785 AD during the rule of Abd ar-Rahman I. It was an enormous project. The world's third largest mosque was built on the site of a West Gothic Christian church that had itself been built on the remains of a Roman temple. A variety of materials was used, and Roman and West Gothic columns, pedestals, and capitals of various sizes and designs were employed. Orange Yard can be entered from the north through the gateway of a huge bell tower. A place of tranquility and contemplation surrounded by shady arcades. With each extension, the mosque became ever more splendid and impressive. The interior of this sacred building is known as the Forest of 1,000 Columns. Each of those columns is unique. It creates an overwhelming impression of infinity. After the Christian conquest, a cathedral was erected within the mosque's prayer hall that looks somewhat incongruous among the Islamic architecture. For that very reason, a number of the columns were destroyed. Today, Christian embellishments of stone are supported by Moorish arches that are totally unique. Right up until today, nobody has dared to remove the result of this architectural misdeed. So originated the name Mezquitza Cathedral. Its huge exterior walls make the building appear like a fortress with Moorish gates and windows. Juderia is the name of the former Jewish quarter whose labyrinth-like complex of alleys extends around the mosque. Synagogues and statues are reminders of a bygone time. During the time of the Caliphates in the middle of the 10th century, many Jews moved to Qurطبة and settled in the streets around Mezquita. There, religious tolerance was observed. In this district, Muslims, Jews and Christians lived peacefully together and enjoyed lively exchanges between their different cultures. This was during a time when the city's commerce and art were at their zenith. Small, attractive courtyards exude peace and tranquility, and the scent of flowers and blossom invades the senses. The city's narrow, labyrinth-like alleys are waiting to be explored. This district contains the remains of the walls of a Christian monastery. And also one of the last 3 Jewish synagogues of the Middle Ages is situated here and is open to the public. Hebrew writing covers the walls. Various statues are reminders of the Jewish scholars Maimonides and Seneca. In the Muslim court, many Sephardim Jews attained high office in Qurطبة, and they were also honored and respected within the Jewish community. Under Christian rule, the period of religious tolerance ended in the 14th century, and in 1492 the Jews were finally driven from the city. With its famous inn, the Plaza del Potro is one of the symbols of the city and was mentioned by Cervantes. During the Middle Ages, cattle markets were held in the village square, and Don Quixote rested here during his travels. Plaza Santa Marina dates back to the 17th century and was once used as a bullfighting arena, also as a theatrical stage. Today it's frequently used as a marketplace. The striking monument of the famous Spanish toreador Manolete, who was killed during a bullfight inside the arena, occupies a large section of the square. The Museo Archeologico is housed within a palace and contains a considerable collection of early Christian, Roman, West Gothic, and most notably Islamic discoveries. stone wall mosaics that date back to Roman times indicate the rich historical inheritance of the city. And Islamic art that dates back to the high season of the caliphates provides an insight into the social life of this period. At the heart of the collection is the Moorish section, with its numerous treasures that came from the old palace city of Madinat al-Zahra. From the center of the city tower the columns of a huge Roman temple, a curious sight in the midst of a modern city. The Ayuntamiento is one of the last remaining buildings of that golden era. The Palacio de Viana is a well-preserved building that dates back to the 14th century. With 17 courtyards and a rich array of colourful Andalusian flowers. This large palace belonged to the Marquis of Viana, whose descendants were unable to maintain it. Consequently, they offered it to a publishing company, and finally a Qurطbة bank saved the property and in 1980 opened it to the public. The palace has a somewhat severe white facade, but its interior is nevertheless a wonderful world of courtyards that open up to a variety of gardens. Numerous buildings are grouped around the courtyards, a paragon of a noble residence that has developed over the centuries. And also a demonstration of the wealth of a bygone time, a time of great artists and their development. Mighty walls surround the Medina. Some of its old gates have survived, such as the Puerta de Almodovar that leads into the Jewish quarter. Known to be a wealthy city, Qurطbة was considered to be a worthy prize, and thus was well protected and fortified. This mighty fortification complex served as a residence for the Catholic monarchy. At the main gate, King Alphonse XI welcomes his guests. In the 14th century, King Alphonse built this Alcazar with its huge park, following Ferdinand the Holy's termination of 5 centuries of Arabian rule. During various hostilities in Granada, this fortress was a secure place for the Christian kings who planned their battles from within its sturdy walls. The park contains statues that are reminders of various great events of Spanish history, and Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand stand close to Christopher Columbus, who discovered America for the Spanish crown. The entire complex is most impressive, with its cleverly arranged park, some areas of which are laid out according to Moorish tradition. Subsequent sections of the park have been created as contemporary gardens with fountains, statues and espaliers that give an added impression of Baroque character. These splendid gardens combine Arabian flair with playful Baroque, and the result is a fascinating achievement. Water is in abundance, and the constant sound of the water features seems to unite with the spirit of flamenco. The various water features in front of the gates of the fortress reflect the artistic tastes of the Renaissance. But the royal castle is also a reminder of history's darker side. At the beginning of the 19th century, the castle was home to the Spanish Inquisition. Much anguish was created from within its walls. The castle also contains many furnishings and fittings that date back to Roman times, and also some rather unusual royal baths that were not the norm for a Christian palace of that period, and which were based again on Moorish design. On the periphery of the city is a small zoo that for many years has been somewhat neglected. But today, much effort is being made to improve the zoological garden. It's quite amazing how this relatively small city is able to afford its own zoo, and each paying visit is a welcome contribution to its occupants. Directly opposite the zoo is the Jardin Botanico, an interesting area that contains a large variety of flowers and plants. Here, the local and also exotic flora of each season of the year provides the visitor with an intriguing display. There's also a gardening school, and an assortment of plants and flower beds provide a good insight into botanical life. In the adjoining Botanical Museum, a modern multimedia presentation reveals everything about the olive tree. In this region, the olive is still enjoyed by one and all. On a remote hill on the edge of the city is the San Jeronimo Monastery. It was here that the region's monks retreated to follow their Christian faith, far removed from the outside world. Once a large monastery with hundreds of monks, today there are only a handful who continue their belief within its sacred walls. Some kilometers further west, and close to the Sierra Morena mountain range, is the Madinat al-Zahra, the ancient palace city of the caliphs. Its construction began in 936 AD under the rule of Abd ar-Rahman III, and it took around 25 years to complete. This was a place of fine mosques and magnificent Moorish gardens. In those days, this was a project of the superlative. However, 70 years after its completion, the city was attacked by the Berber hordes and destroyed. Later, the Almoravides and the Almohadas plundered the area for their own buildings and thus accelerated the decline of this extraordinary complex. Following the time when the Madinat al-Zahra had fallen into oblivion, in 1911 excavation finally began on the Alcazar. Most noteworthy is a building whose magnificent main hall, the salon, and horseshoe arches has nearly reached its final stage of reconstruction. In front of it are Moorish gardens, most of which have been fully restored. These were the settings for many a political debate. An army of servants was engaged to care for the palace city, which the caliph named after his favorite wife, Zahra. During Moorish times, Qurطbة was one of the most splendid and cultural metropolis in the Occident, and later the symbiosis of three cultures. A combination of the Arabic, Jewish and Christian worlds, Qurطbة, the city on the big river, the pearl of Andalusia.